how to explain to people, especially other Muslims, that you're an ex-Muslim, for example, at work.
Well, work is usually a safer environment. Again, this person is from the UK, so um, work can be a bit easier rather than going to do that in a mosque or something. And again, you don't even. I don't think there was ever a need explicitly to say something. For example, now again, I'm going living my own experience. Like there was this where I worked, there was only one or two Muslims, and they would notice me that I would go and have a beer on Friday, or live like a non-Muslim. So they had already assumed. Yeah, so they had already assumed that this guy just doesn't care or whatever. I remember once there was this manager. He used to go out, and funnily enough, he was actually sacked for harassing women. There were multiple women who came and complained about him. But anyway, so I remember, and he used to go out when he was a Palestinian Muslim. He went out and used to party and everything. One day, he just out of nowhere, I think he was just drunk, and he said, I can't remember. I said something, and he said, "Do whatever you want, but never mess with him." And he pointed up. I was like, "Who?" He said, "God." So I was like, "Excuse me, I don't think you're the right person to talk about piety and believing in God and stuff." But anyway, so they all Muslims are all kind of they come in all kinds of flavors at workplace. So again, I would say usually you don't have to explicitly say it, but you can't live and give off this impression that you don't care.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. I would say, just because I'm a little bit more connected to the situation that this person could be in, given I'm in the same country, and there was an instance where I was in a workplace and the woman had already assumed and had done several things based on the assumption that I was similar to her, like a British Pakistani Muslim. And I don't know if it just the conversation had gone too far, but I was like, how do I break it to her now that I'm an ex-Muslim? And is it gonna? There's so many thoughts going through her head. You're like, have they heard that term? What's gonna happen? What's the backlash? Am I gonna break her heart and say maybe Islam isn't the truth? There were so many things going through my head, and I think I told you about this off air, Haris, and you were so angry. You're like, why didn't you just tell her you're an ex-Muslim? And I was like, I don't know. I literally, maybe I just chickened out. I don't know, but it's the backlash. But I agree. Like, I think in a workplace, by default, you are meant that's a safe space for you, and there's no level of discrimination. I think if you're going to start practicing telling people you're an ex-Muslim, people at work are a good place to start because they're not related to you. Obviously, if there's no direct threat or security issue, then go ahead and start slowly speaking your truth. If people are trying to just put it on you by virtue of the way you look or what your name is, the same way they just impose that Muslim identity onto me, and I'm like, whoa, you haven't even asked me what my worldview is. Don't just assume based on my skin color or my name. So that's definitely a real problem. But I would say it will be very liberating to tell people at work, if they start changing their behavior for you, that's already grounds for discrimination. So you are protected in every sense. And I would say start speaking your truth, especially in an environment like work, again, with safety, notwithstanding the safety issues.
Very quickly, though, is workplace really a good place to talk about these things? Because, it's probably not the best idea to have a conversation about Muhammad's sex life or whatever, because, again, there are discrimination policies, and, you can't really... It's not really...
I would assume you're not going into those hardcore discussions at the office, right? It's just, you should be doing it at work, really.
Because you said, that's what... And only you probably have 15-minute break and a lunch break, but then it's probably not the best time to talk.
And you're not really going to go to the pub for drinks after work with them, because they're going to be going to the mosque.
There you might have a bit of a luxury, but again, but a Muslim wouldn't be there. And if he's there having a beer, then you can say, "Wow, astaghfirullah."
They're just saying they're ex-Muslim. Like, hey, are you a Muslim? Well, sit aside here. Like, let me tell you about Muhammad's marriage to Aisha. Like, no. By the way, PK in the live chat is saying, like, don't tell them that you're ex-Muslim. Just say you're not religious. I completely disagree. Like Nuria said, like, you don't have to go into details with them. I think, like, you actually should tell them you're ex-Muslim. I mean, no, there's no should. Sorry. If it's safe for you and if you feel like it, and if you are choosing, I would suggest to you to pick saying that you're ex-Muslim, so you could normalize this, right? This is the whole process. Like, we're trying to normalize dissent, normalize the idea of people could leave Islam, because this is the most taboo thing among all religions. Leaving Islam is the most taboo. We want more people to know that the concept of leaving Islam, the concept of ex-Muslim, is this thing. So we are beyond just other people that are not religious. Like, we're ex-Muslims, and I think more people just hearing that word is extremely important. Yeah, but do you guys agree? like about like being specifically, like I celebrated every time somebody just says like this, like, oh no, I don't believe in these things, or like, oh, like when somebody like specifically says I'm an atheist, right? I'm not, you, or I'm an ex-Muslim. Like, you're not dancing around, you're not trying to soften it, like, it's kind of like the struggle between different groups of LGBT activists, back in the 60s and stuff. Some of them were suggesting like, we could just have our own, like, we don't have to tell people, they're not ready to accept it. We could just have our own like underground clubs and stuff. Like, we could just be like, this society is not ready for this. Okay, this, there will be too much of a backlash. And there were a whole bunch of other groups like, they better get ready because we're coming. Like, we need to normalize this, right? And they were like, the concept of out and proud became a thing, and that's why we had a speedy change of mind in Western countries about LGBT issues, right? So I'm thinking like, if you're an atheist, if people ask, don't tell them you're not religious, don't tell them you don't believe in God, don't tell them you're a humanist, don't tell them you're a skeptic, tell them you're an atheist. Okay, and if you're an ex-Muslim, tell them you're an ex-Muslim atheist. All right.
Mm.
Tell them you're an atheist. Tell them you're a heretic.
I absolutely agree with you. But what about the people who actually are not really that interested and care about that? I know as activists, it's our job to inspire people and actually put our ideas or what we think, the subjects that are very close to us, we want to put them forward. But there would be, I mean, I have some Australian friends, like, religion is just as irrelevant to them as talking about, let's say, magic or a horoscope in their day-to-day life. So they're just not interested in that. So they don't label themselves anything.
Yeah, well, okay, so I mean, I'm not saying everybody has to do this. I'm just saying if you do it, it helps. Okay, like for example, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm an atheist, but I don't tell people I'm an atheist because atheism is not that big of a deal to me, right? Like, I know it's not that big of a deal to you, okay, but it helps the other atheists who are suffering from atheism being a taboo, right? So make it. I know atheism, even though you don't believe in God, and atheism, you're an atheist because you don't believe in a God, because you don't choose to wear the label atheist because it's not a significant part of your life. But can you help more atheists reach your level? Can you make it so that more atheists get to say religion doesn't influence their life that much? Because you're in a very privileged position that you're an atheist and religion doesn't influence your life that much. If you wear the label atheist, atheism will become normalized at some point, and more atheists will be able to say, like, religion, atheism doesn't affect my life that much. So help more people get there. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and I agree because as you're saying, like, the fact that, again, that's a privilege to not have either the belief in God or the freedom from the belief in God to affect your life. Like, the three of us can go and live out our lives. It's not a big deal, and it's only brought up when and as. But because we're activists, and, like, again, the whole point of this movement is to normalize dissent and make this label known. Just to piggyback off what you were saying, the other effect that this has, which I found really good, is when I first, like, finally had the courage when I went to the workplace, and obviously I, like, sussed out the situation. So I was working with a Hindu and a Christian. I was like, I'm safe here, I can say it. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm not Muslim, I'm an ex-Muslim. And even just the knock-on effect of that was like, they're like, oh, that's a thing? Like, we didn't know that was a thing. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, wait, so you were in Islam and then you left it? And I was like, yeah, there's some serious issues. Like, it goes very dark. And then they went off on their own journeys being like, yeah, I'd heard a bit about Islam and my friends always say this, but I didn't know, like, what are your thoughts on this, this, and this? And now they are opened up to this whole movement that ex-Muslims like us exist. We've left Islam and we are normal functioning human beings, like members of society, So, and that has a knock-on effect. Then they go and pass on videos and they make this label more known. And if this girl had, like, one of the women I worked with had, like, a stepfather who was Muslim and was trying to add, like, slowly kind of add some Islam into their life, she was now able to like push it back every time because she was more well informed. So there's various, like, knock-on effects as well, I think.
Even if somebody doesn't, like, that's very good, that's a very good point, but even if somebody doesn't go into that journey, right, let's say somebody that is not even knows much about Islam, right, you tell them you're an ex-Muslim, and like, oh, what's that? I'm like, oh, I used to be Muslim, now I left it, so that makes me an ex-Muslim. And they're like, oh, okay. And they don't think about it much more anymore, right? And then another day they meet somebody who's like, I'm a Muslim. And they're like, oh, have you heard of ex-Muslims? And they're like, have I heard of what? like ex-Muslims. I met an ex-Muslim. Or like now they are just like, just by mentioning us, a Muslim is being like, oh my God, people are like talking about ex-Muslim. So like, is this the rise of it? Like they will get just mentioning the name will make more people who not even maybe not be interested in it just mention it to someone else, and that it might have like a couple of degrees of separation. Maybe you have affected somebody without even noticing it, like not directly but indirectly that way.
Last question.
Exactly, 100%. Okay, last question, guys. Oh my gosh. Should you, are you guys ready for this? Should you get a name change to a non-Muslim name, as Horace was saying, to Paul Duke Lon? No, I'm kidding. Paul Luke John, no, not a Christian name, but should you get a name change to a Matthew, that was it, to a non-Muslim name? For example, my official first name is Mohammed, although I've always used the name and it's just the general other Pakistani name. So yeah.
I was lucky that I didn't have a very Muslim name, but I think if my name was Muhammad, again, this is my thing because I know there's Abdullah, slave of Allah, there's Muhammad Saeed, like Muhammad Saeed, but and I get the logic behind that. Look, I mean, these guys are Arabic names, the Umar, Uthman, Abu Bakr, etc. These guys are pre-Islamic names, so they don't have any monopoly or they don't own these names per se. But the ancient Arabic traditional culture is dead. So I don't know, just to give a, like a little, just to stick it to them, I personally would have changed it. But again, there's no rule for that. I mean, if you like that name, and again, it's a bit of a pain to, all your degrees and your birth certificates and everywhere it's that name. Yeah, it's a lot of, no, but I think it's pretty easy. Just go to birth names and deaths and marriages, whatever registrar, what the equivalent in your country, just go there and say, hey, look, I don't like that name anymore, I want to change it. I think it probably takes a couple of weeks, and then you change it and you update it in driver's license and your passport, and that's it. Move on. We move on. But again, how are you going to tell your friends, hey, Muhammad, no, change that name, my name is Abdul now?
Yeah, so I think obviously, again, if your name is Mohammed, that's slightly unfortunate, and there's obviously like that's something you've got to like really figure out if the connotations with that name affect you and hurt you so much that you're repulsed by your own name, then sure, maybe. The fact that my name, again, as Haris was saying, it's supposedly Arabic, but I looked into it. It's Hebrew, and if it is Nuriya, it's literally the light of Yahweh. Yeah. So I've got deeper problems than the Arabic. Mine goes back to Yahweh.
I was about to say that you're lucky that you've only got your Nuriya is like quite exotic. It's like Keanu.
Well, it's probably just the light of Yahweh, which is the most like religious name you could potentially have. Jewish, the original. Jewish, yeah. But anyway, so again, it's been my identity marker since like day dot, since I was born, and I genuinely, again, I can separate the fact that where it's come from and the names and still be able to own it. So I wouldn't suggest, unless it's something that you really can't deal with, for the same reason people get like Botox or whatever. If it's something that's really bothering you and you want to fix it, by all means, go ahead. But if you're happy and you can carry on and it's not a big deal, and if you've got a name that could be slightly more anglicized or whatever you want it to be, go ahead and switch it up.
I honestly think you should be proud of having an Arabic name as an ex-Muslim. For two reasons. First of all, most people can't be proud of their name because they haven't had much of a say in their name, right? But if you are an ex-Muslim with an Arabic name, it shows that it's kind of an indication that you survived the brainwashing. Like, how many people could say that their name is a sign of them being exposed to brainwashing and surviving it? Like, not that many people could say that, right? So if you're Muhammad or Abdullah, you probably were born in a Muslim family and you're an ex-Muslim atheist, right? So I think you should be proud of that. So why not wear that with pride?
Especially when people are like, oh, is that your name? Oh, so you're Muslim. And it's like, no, don't jump to that conclusion. Yeah.
Exactly. And also, yeah, exactly what you're saying. It shows, like, if you're an atheist with an Arabic name, it basically breaks stereotypes, and it shows that people are leaving Islam. People out of Muslim communities are leaving Islam. It's beautiful to have somebody with a Muhammad name or an Abdullah name or an Aisha name be an ex-Muslim atheist. There's actually something poetic about it. I don't know, something rebellious about it. You know, my name is the slave of Allah, and I left Islam. Like, that is so badass, isn't it? Like, that isn't, like, I don't know, like, yeah, I was destined. They thought I was destined to be the slave of Allah, and I broke my chains. Look at me now. Like, I don't know, why can't you be proud of that instead of being ashamed of that? I don't know.
Oh, now I need my brother to become ex-Muslim so badly. His name is the Sword of Allah, and I just want him to be like,
I'm
the Sword of Allah, but I beheaded Islam.
Yeah, look, I think you're talking about more from a collective point of view rather than individual point of view. Because again, it's like it could have different views on the individual psyche. As I said, I would not want to have that. Well, I guess it is still Haris. It's still a very Arabic name. But the other thing you said that most people can't be proud of the name. In this case, you can be proud of the name, but you can. I guess you could still be proud of your name because what was a meme that at birth we're given our name, nationality, and religion. And we spend the rest of our lives fighting for it when we didn't even choose them. So at least you can change your name.
No, I mean, I think still it's from an individual, because I said I would feel like that. I wasn't saying you should feel like that. I'm just saying, like, I know, like Muhammad Sayyid, for example, he's an ex-Muslim, and I like the fact that the founder, or, you know, that one of the founders of the ex-Muslims of North America, the fact that his name is Muhammad. I don't know. I think there's something poetic about that. Yeah, I personally wouldn't change it, but I understand if somebody feels disgusted by that and wants to change it. I'm not going to blame them. I'm just telling you how I feel about it. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, because
no,
this
I think
is
it's purely subjective and based on, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm giving it a subjective answer because there's no right answer to this.
No, that's what we wanted. We just wanted like everyone's personal thoughts, because I think this will all inevitably help this person come to some kind of decision. So it's good that we all have like our own insights. But yeah, Haris, that is me done with patron questions. Thank you for answering those, guys. I'm sure he'll very much appreciate it.
If you like these videos and want to support me in my activism, then you can support me on Patreon or PayPal. Stay free, everyone.